Hi y'all, Orla from Avid here. Today I'm going to run through getting an idea or song started with Pro Tools Sketch on iPad. Sketch is a free music creation app that lets you quickly capture, play and experiment with ideas in a non-linear clip-based workflow. Whether you're working with loops and samples or recording in your own vocals and instruments, with Sketch you can create ideas from anywhere. Within Sketch, our tracks run along the top and we can have up to 16 audio and instrument tracks. On the audio tracks, which have a small waveform icon, we can drag and drop different loops and samples, or record in our own instruments or vocals. For the instrument tracks, which have a keyboard icon, we can choose a sound from the included PlayCell and SynthCell software instruments, and record or drop in MIDI ideas for that specific instrument. On the left side, we have our scenes, which are like our individual song sections: intro, verse, chorus, bridge, outro. All the clips that run horizontally across make up that scene. Then along the top, we've got the scene arranger, where we can drag all of our scenes in any order and with repeats to create a full song. Sketch is available for free by searching Pro Tools Sketch in the App Store. The app will open with 2 instrument tracks, 2 audio tracks, and 4 scenes already created, so I can get started adding ideas straight away. To add a new track, I can tap the plus button to the right of the tracks, choose audio or instrument, then tap twice for the menu to duplicate, delete, and add a name and color. The same applies to scenes. Tap the plus button, then tap twice for the menu to duplicate, delete, add more scenes above and below, create a scene from playing, and add a name and color. Tapping on the BPM or time signature, or the name field, will bring up the Sketch project properties, where I can name my sketch, set the tempo and time signature, and adjust the global quantize. I'm going to start my sketch by adding some drums. The app comes with a range of free audio loops, samples, and MIDI ideas. These get installed automatically in the sound library. First, I can test out some loops by hitting play on any clip. When the audition button is on, these will all play in the same tempo as my sketch. I like this kick, so I'll drag it straight onto an audio track. Tapping play on the clip will loop it so I can jump back into the browser to test out some hats on top. I can also bring in my own loops, samples and MIDI from iCloud, Dropbox, or wherever they're stored. This eventide loop is pretty cool, so I'll drag that in. And I also want to add a cymbal, so I'll grab one of the Syntact one-shots as well. Then I can use the audio editor to manipulate these loops and samples whatever way I want. To turn this cymbal into a riser that marks the end of every 4 bars, I'll double tap to open it in the editor, extend the timeline to make it into a 4-bar loop, tap on the clip and drag it over to bars 3 and 4, use stretch to drag it out a little longer, and then lastly turn on reverse and tap the clip to flip the sample. Let's have a listen to how that sounds. My loops are now a mix of 2 and 4 bars long. The scene will always match the longest loop, so my 2-bar ones will play twice while the 4-bar runs through once. If I want to use a bass or melodic loop that's not in the right key, I can also use the audio editor to change the pitch. This loop I want to use is in B minor, but I'd like my idea to be in C minor, so I'll use the pitch tool on the bottom left to bring it up one semitone. Now that I have some drums and bass going, I'd like to add some melodic ideas. On instrument tracks, the PlayCell software instrument is added by default with a piano sound loaded. There are a range of different instruments you can choose from, like kits, and lots of orchestral instruments like strings. Sketch also comes with SynthCell, which I can load by tapping the first insert. There are lots of sounds I can experiment with here too, and there's an arpeggiator I can use to get ideas started quickly. What I might do first is drag in one of the included MIDI chord progressions to use with the arpeggiator. The only thing is the progression is in A minor and I want it to be in C, so I'll jump into the MIDI editor to change the notes. If I tap and hold, I can select all of the notes, then drag them up 3 steps. I can also use SynthCell's built-in oscillator, filter, envelope, and other effects to design the sound whatever way I want. That's sounding pretty nice, but now I think I want to record another melody on top. For this, I think I'll use the choir sound from PlayCell. Make it higher by changing the octave on the right. Then play around with the 4 included effects to give it more of a synth feel. If I want, I can also randomize these effects by tapping on the square box. I'm going to record using the on-screen keyboard, but you can also add a MIDI keyboard to record as well. First, I need to record enable my instrument track by tapping on the red circle. If I want to click while I'm recording, I can turn on the metronome on the right-hand side, but I'm just going to play along with the material already in the scene. So I'll tap the play button on the scene and then the record button on the matching cell. It's okay to let the scene loop a couple of times before playing, as in the MIDI editor I can crop this into the loop that I need. Just make sure the loop button on the left is turned on, and then Sketch will loop this 4-bar melody with the rest of the scene. My timing was a little off, so I'll use Quantize to move the notes to the correct spots on the grid. Using Strength, I can have the notes 100% in time, which is the default, or have a more human feel by bringing it lower. I can also make the part feel swung if it suits the genre or vibe. Again, I can pinch in or out 2 fingers to zoom in and out on the editor to easily make changes. For any wrong notes I played, I can quickly tap twice on any note to delete it. Or I can change the pitch by tapping the note and dragging up or down. To extend any notes I didn't hold long enough when playing, I can drag on either side. When grid is turned off, these can be moved freely with your finger, without being locked to the timing of the grid. It's also easy to tap and drag the notes anywhere I want. To add a new note, I can double tap beside the note I want on the piano roll. And there's also an undo and redo button at the top I can use for any mistakes. If I want to make my part sound more dynamic, I can turn on the velocity button and drag to adjust how hard or soft I want the notes to be played. Okay, let's hear how the full scene sounds together. Next up, I'd like to record in a string line on my violin. So I'll create an audio track and add a touch of reverb and delay so it's not too dry. You can add an audio interface and set it up in preferences, or you can use the microphone on the iPad, which I'm going to use for this example. Again, to record Enable, I need to tap the red circle to the right of the track. Turning on the microphone button at the top will also let me hear how the violin sounds as I'm recording. Otherwise, I won't have any idea what the sound is like until I'm finished playing. When I'm ready to record, I'll turn the mic button on, hit play on the scene, and then tap the record button on the cell. Now to clean this up, I'll double tap the clip to open the audio editor. Use trim to remove any unwanted audio from the recording. With grid off, I can get really close to the violin part so it's cleaner. Add some fades to soften the in and out points. Turn grid back on and tap and drag the file to the beginning. This should help my timing too, as I was a little off. And then lastly, crop the timeline so this melody will loop with the rest of my scene. Let's hear if that helped the recording at all. Not too bad, but the whole thing needs a little bit of mixing, so I'll have a look at that next. Each track has its own level, solo, mute, and pan, available from both the track tab and the mixer. It's easy to loop playback and start getting some levels. There's also 9 effects I can use on my instruments. Each audio track has 3 slots for real-time effects. And on instrument tracks, I can add 2 afterplay cell and synth cell. I'd like to add a low-pass filter to my bass to give it some energy without having it take up too much space in the mix. So I'll tap the first insert, then choose multi-mode filter from the list, then tap again to open the effect window. In simple view, all of the effects are based on an XY graph, so I can use my ear to get the balance I want. For multi-mode filter, the higher you move on the graph, the more resonance you will get, and the further right, the higher the cutoff frequency. I can also choose my filter type and add some drive from this window. If I want more parameters, I can jump into advanced view, and that's the same for all of the effects. If I want everything to feel like it's in the same space and has the same feel, there is also a global delay and reverb that can be added to all tracks. From the Global Effects tab, I can choose from a range of different delays and reverbs, then adjust the settings on the graph to suit. I can also sync with the tempo of my sketch. And there's a power button to turn both of the effects off. Now that I have one idea going, I want to start building up some ideas in other scenes. If I want to get rid of any empty scenes, I can just double tap on any scene to bring up the menu and hit delete. Scene 1 is going to be my intro, so I'll open the menu again, rename that, and give it a color. First, I'd like an atmospheric loop that builds up for my intro, so I'll jump into the browser and bring one in. One thing I need to keep in mind between scenes is the key of the melodic loops. This loop is in E minor, but the other scene is in C minor, so I'll use the pitch tool again to bring it down 4 semitones. I'll also use the selection tool to duplicate this, then extend the timeline so it's 8 bars long. The reason I'm not looping this at 4 bars is I think it would be cool to have a breath for the last bar before we move to the next scene. So I'll use trim to take that bar out. I'll add a fade at the cut point, and I'd also like the loop to come in gradually, so I'll add a long fade at the start too. To build up a new scene, I'm going to copy some of the drums from the earlier scene. A cool trick here is to open the menu of any scene and hit Create Scene from Playing. This will drag all the clips I've just been looping into a brand new scene. Or I can just double tap on any clip I want and hit Duplicate. To create some variation, I'll use a different drum loop and bass loop for this scene. This bass loop is in F though, so I'll need to bring it down 5 semitones to C. The first scene I was working on feels more like a chorus or a hook, so I'll drag the new scene above that, rename it verse, and give it a color. Then name the other one chorus and give that a color too. If I want a repeat of a scene with 1 or 2 clips changed, I can always duplicate the entire scene, then delete the clips I want. Once I have a few scenes running, I can start thinking about my song structure. At the top of the sketch window, I can tap to turn on the scene arranger, and then drag my scenes in any order. I can also tap on any scene in the arrangement to remove it. On the right of each scene, there is an option to add repeats. My verse and chorus are only 4 bars long, so I'm going to add a repeat to each of those. And I want the last chorus to be 16 bars, so I'll add 4 repeats. Once I'm ready to hear the full song, I'll make sure I have the arrangement selected, and then hit play on the transport controls. First we have the intro, which is 8 bars long. Then onto the verse. A repeat of the verse. And then onto the chorus. So in this kind of workflow, I can focus on getting creative, and all the copying and pasting of sections and the structure is made as easy as possible. Once I'm happy with the idea, I can export the full sketch as a WAV file to listen on another device, or upload it, or send it to a friend. To save my sketch, I can go to the folder menu where I have the option to save, save and close, or close without saving. If I click Save and Close, it will bring me out to the folder locations on my iPad. From here, I can easily move my sketch to different folders or start a new idea. Saving my sketches on something like iCloud Drive or Dropbox will let me easily bring them into any version of Pro Tools on Mac or PC. Sketch is integrated with Pro Tools, so I can drag individual clips, full scenes, and even the entire arrangement into the edit window. For more on this, make sure to check out our video on how to use Sketch with Pro Tools. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you all have fun getting creative with Sketch.